Dr. Betty Uribe. Aplauso.
Thank you, Pablito. Good evening, everybody. Buenas noches a todos. So I'm going to tell you some stories. I've been told by my children that I'm a pretty good storyteller, so I'm going to tell you some stories about some trips. Normally I talk about my life or business or banking or whatever. Tonight is going to be different. Tonight I get to tell you about a couple of trips that I just took, and as late as last 2 weeks ago I was in Kenya. And so I'm going to point you over to a collage that I put together of some of the pictures. And the reason I went to Kenya, and I'm going to talk to you about a trip to Kenya and a trip to Israel and how the two of them overlapped and created an opportunity for me to really think about my life in a different way. And it also created a paradigm shift in the way I thought about how we, all of us, can actually be a conduit to making a real difference globally for people in the world. So I'm going to invite you to join me in this journey. And as I tell you these stories, I'd like you to really think about and get back and connect with where you came from, why you're here, who brought you here, what it took for them, from them, to get you here. And when I talk about here, I'm not talking about this particular physical place. I'm talking about the place that you are at in your life today and how much you can do with what you have, which is something that President Bush said. It's not what we have, but what we do with what we have that makes a difference. As I was dining with President Bush a long time ago, he said this, and I made that into something that was dear and near to my life. Bush. So I get to this place, and whenever I travel, my daughter knows I love to run in the morning, and I run for about an hour. It's a really good way to learn the terrain and to kind of see it really, rather than driving. And so I said, well, I'm going to run in the morning. And they said, well, you can't do this. I'm in the Masai Mara area. And those of you who have been to Kenya or have read about it or seen it in National Geographic, you know there's tigers and there's giraffes and there's monkeys and there's all kinds of different things. And so they said, well, you can't really do that. And I said, well, I'm gonna do it. And so those of you who know I'm a little bit stubborn. And so they said, well, the only way that you can do this is if we assign a Masai warrior to run with you. Now, let me tell you what it takes to be a Masai warrior. At the age of 15, they go into a different place. They come out as men, and they get circumcised to the age of 15. Now, in order to get ready to be circumcised, they have to undergo a lot of pain. They have to be able to get circumcised without flinching. If they flinch, then they have dishonored their family and their villages. And so it isn't something that you really want. And so what this gentleman was telling me about, now I ran 1 hour every morning with Jackson. I interviewed Jackson every morning for an hour. So I really got to know him, and I really got to know what it takes to be a Maasai warrior. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, and then I'm going to go into other stories because there's a lot of juicy stuff in these stories that I don't want you to leave without. So they have to, in order to prepare, I was asking him, there's these burns in your arms, what are they? He said, oh, well, they're preparation to becoming a Maasai warrior. I said, well, what are you talking about? They said, well, you know, the elders bring you in right before you're turning 15 to make sure that you're ready for this, and they bring you in and they burn you, and you have to sit very still, and you can't flinch. Again, if you flinch, you will dishonor your family and your village. And so either they burn you or they cut you. And then if you're not ready, you have to go to the cave. So, Alex, when I say go to the cave, no, never mind. So you have to go to the cave. And so they take them literally into a cave where they prepare them to become a Maasai warrior. So, long story short, they have to get circumcised in a circle with the elders being around them. They also have to kill a lion. And so I asked him, how do you kill a lion? And if you want to know how to kill a lion, ask me privately because it's a long story and Pablito has the clock ticking. So I'll tell you the story about how to kill a lion. I also want to tell you a story about Wilter. And Wilter is the girl on the right side of my collage. And I'm sitting there smiling with Wilter and with Sherry, another donor that traveled with us. Wilter is 19 years old, and at the age of 14, her father said, it's time to get you circumcised. And in Africa, at the time, she's 19 years old, she was 14. At the time, what they do in the families is they get them circumcised, and then they give them out to marriage so that they can get a dowry, and the dowries are in the form of cattle, which is the highest economic monetary value. And so Wilter said, I don't want to get circumcised. She went to her mother and said, I don't want to get circumcised. I want to go to school. And her mother said, but you're going to dishonor the family, and your father has already said you have to get circumcised and you have to go to marriage. And she said, no, I don't want to do that. And the mother said, well, the only way that you can get away with it is if you escape. And I can help you escape. She said, no, Mother, you can't do that because he will kill you too. My father, she meant. And her mother said, then let him kill me because I want you to be happy. And if this is something that's going to make you happy, then I will do whatever it takes. So that morning, Mother woke up Walter, and said, okay, today's your day, and you're still here. It's now or never. Your father stepped away. Wilter, at the age of 14, got up and ran away and went into the jungle for 3 months by herself. Now, I saw the jungle, and I saw the animals, and I saw the buffalo, and I saw all of this that Wilter went into, and until you really see it, it's really difficult to really comprehend it. But I'm trying to paint a picture so that you really understand. You see, all of us, and those of us who are immigrants, I came here at the age of 12, and my mother went through a lot to come here. And maybe we have ancestors. How many of you came to the United States or have ancestors who came to the United States and paid a price to be here? So I want you to just really connect with that as I tell you these stories, and the power of a parent and the power of really connecting with what's important to you and being courageous. And what was said tonight was so apropos to what I'm talking about. So the mother said, go down. So she went. For 3 months she was in the jungle. After 3 months she thought it was safe to come back into town, and she went into the school, the local high school, and said, here are my grades, would you let me go into the school? And they looked at the grades and they said, oh my gosh, these are some of the best grades I've seen. Absolutely, we'll let you come to school, but we need your father's permission. She said, I can't talk to my father, he's gonna kill me. And then they said, well, what if we talk to your father? She said, okay, please. So they went and talked to her father, and after a lot of conversation, her father reluctantly let her go to school. Today, she's a graduate. Today, she is a role model, and I correspond with her today. And this morning, I sent her an email, and I let her know that I was telling her story to you. And she was so excited to know that her story is making a difference. I'm going to tell you another story about a young lady who went into the school, and her father was a grower of some kind back in her city, and there's a 200-acre garden that is manned by 5 people, and we actually got to see it. And so they do some agricultural courses. Well, she took some agricultural courses, and over the weekend she would go back home and she would teach her father how to grow other things. Well, today, when I asked her, so what has education done for you and your family back in your village? She said, my father is today one of the big guys in the neighborhood because he now feeds the entire neighborhood with his crop. So it's amazing. What I noticed is the power of community and the power of being together. In one of the schools that we went to, and some of you know that I'm writing a book on values-based leadership. So values play a really key, important role in my life, and I wrote my dissertation around it. Well, I walked in, and there were values all over the walls. In every wall, there were values. And here and I think in one of the pictures you can kind of see it in the background in the classroom, you know, the only people that really grow in life are the people who are willing to change and grow and share what they do. There's so many different sayings. When I went into the library, I just stood in awe of looking at the books and the magnitude of books, and every single book was completely used up. These young ladies in this one girls' school, they put together a committee, and they went to the school and to the principal and said, you know, right now you have us wake up at 4:30 so that we can start school at 6 o'clock, and we really would like to make a petition that we want to wake up at 3:30 so we can start school at 5 o'clock. And they said, why? And the girls said, well, there's only 4 years in school, and there's so much that we want to learn, and the time that we have is just not enough, and we really want to go to school, and we really want to learn. Would you please let us wake up at 3:30? I don't know about you, but when I looked at these girls and I sat with them, and to the left, in the middle left of my collage, you see me in a picture with 4 young ladies. One of them, I said, so what do you want to do when you grow up? And when you finish your graduation? One of them said, I'm going to be a neurosurgeon. The other one said, I'm going to be a judge. The other one said, I'm going to be a pilot. And the last one said, I'm going to be a writer for a newspaper, and I'm going to write about life. It wasn't, I think I'm going to be, it wasn't anything but absolute certainty of where they were going. And when I said, where are you going to go to college? They said, well, we're applying to this university, and I'm going to go to this university, and I already have my path written out for me. I don't know if any of us are able to go to any high school in Southern California and randomly pick 4 kids who are so passionate and so committed, so much so that they're willing to put their life on the line. You see, I saw children as I was running with one of my mornings with Jackson. I saw a group of children coming down, and they were walking to school. Well, the kids were about 6, 8, 10, and 12 years old. It was 4 children. They were walking in the Masai Mara to go to school. They had to walk 1.5 hours to 2 hours to get to school every day. Well, in the same Masai Mara area, I saw a man walking with a stick with a buffalo down the road, looking at him ready to charge. And we ended up coming back and really, literally saving his life. That's when it sunk into me, the actual commitment that these people have for an education. So what does education do for them? And what did I learn? There was one girl who went into this school, and she said to me, you know, there were 3 different communities, and they used to kill each other before she went into school. What she found was children that they didn't used to talk to one another. They didn't used to do anything with one another because the tribes would just kill each other. Today, they're calling each other sister. Today, their tribes are now cohabitating with one another. The parents go on Fridays and they teach each other how they do things in the different tribes. So take that back to us today. And what is it going to take for our world to really get to a better place? I'm going to tell you a story now about a situation that happened when I went into a little town in Israel called Sfat, and then I'm going to make a connection for you. I walked into a gallery and I looked at this one sculpture, and come to find out there was a video about a gentleman who was in a concentration camp. Nick Imber is his name, and I don't know how many of you know about him, but after tonight you will tell stories about Nick Imber. He was in a concentration camp. He was born in Vienna, and he was trained in Vienna, a very wonderful artist. In the concentration camp, he started memorizing the face of the guard. As the guard came every day, he started carving the guard's face out of bread and sand. And so when he was finished, every night he would carve a little bit. When he was finished, he stole the uniform from the laundry, I think, and then he put it on and he put the mask on, and he literally walked out of the concentration camp without being noticed. Once he walked out, he vowed that he would create sculptures and he would make it so that the world would never forget about the Holocaust. And so he built, his very first sculpture was called Hope. Actually, it was called The Hope. And it's a woman holding a baby up to the heavens. And what he meant was, there's hope. Even though we're here in the concentration camp, there's hope for something that we're going to be able to build later. And that's the sculpture that he built. Out of that, he built the same sculpture in the Vatican. He built the same sculpture in Washington, D.C. for one of the presidents. He was actually hired to reconstruct some of Michelangelo's work, actually David, in the Vatican. Very well known. So after I read the story, or I saw the story in this video, they stopped, and so here I am, and I looked at this little sculpture, and I said, well, how much for that? A little hope. And I thought, oh my gosh, hope. And they said, well, you know, this is $6,000, and I looked at it, and I thought, there's something wrong with it, and I just looked over, and I said, what about that one? And he says, oh, that's the original sculpture. So I said, well, let me see it. So I stood by it, and I just looked at it, and how much? And he told me how much, now, those of you who know me, I'm Colombian, Italian, and recently I found out that I have Jewish blood running through my veins, and so that's a triple trouble here. And I negotiate absolutely everything in my life, but I couldn't negotiate this one. He gave me the price, and all I could say was, I'll take it. I didn't have the money, I didn't have my American Express, I left it in the hotel. And I said, look, I have an ATM card. He said, just give me $1,000 and I'll send you, and then you can wire the money. So sure enough, I called Gloria right here, my assistant and best bosom sister. I said, Gloria, I just bought this sculpture. I can't believe I just bought this sculpture, and I got this original sculpture, la la la. And she said, Hope? Oh my gosh, you're giving scholarships all over the world. Well, my commitment is to give 100 scholarships to kids in each continent by the age of 80. So I have a little ways to go. I have plenty of time. But I'm starting with 100 in Kenya through the Unstoppable Foundation. So anyway, so we go through, and she says, well, you have to use it now. She's got a marketing mind because she's got a marketing company. She says, you've got to brand this. You've got to be able to use this. And I said, well, I have to ask for permission. So I called and I talked to Ruben, the owner of the gallery, and I said, I need to ask you for a favor, but I need to tell you my story first. And then I told him my story. I will tell you my story privately if you want to hear it. And so he said, you know, before you even ask anything, you can have anything you want. The answer is yes. And I said, well, I haven't paid for I haven't sent you the money. He said, well, I haven't told you the story. And oh, by the way, your sculpture's already in Los Angeles. I said, I haven't paid you. He said, I haven't told you the story. I said, well, what's the story? He said, well, you see, when Nicky Imber passed away, there were many museums that were asking to see the original sculpture. And right before you arrived, the sculpture came back from a museum. And when he passed away, there were over 60 people that wanted to purchase the sculpture all over. And those 60, and the rabbi in town said, absolutely not, they cannot purchase that. And what the rabbi said to me, he said, is you will know the person that is supposed to have the sculpture. They will walk into your gallery, and you will know it the moment they walk in. And you are the person who was supposed to have the sculpture, and I knew it from the moment you walked in. So it was a humbling moment, and it still is. The sculpture is number 8. The author, the artist named it number 8. And because it means infinity and it means life. And so one of my employees, Ash Abdullati, as I was talking to Ash, and I said, I've got to name this, I don't know what to name it, and I'm thinking Hope International or whatever. He said, well, what about Infinite Hope International? So that day, a couple of weeks ago, Infinite Hope International was born. So I asked Pablito, and I said, you know, how about if we unveil the sculpture on the 20th of July, 20 de Julio, Colombian Independence Day, today. And so, if you will humor me, I would like to have the honor of having my daughter join me up, and we will be unveiling Nikki Ember's The Hope, and we will give birth tonight at this moment, and you get to join me for this. And I'm so excited that Matt Toledo is here to join me for this, because my dear friend and brother Matt Toledo got me for the first time to think globally. I said, I'm going to go California. He said, no, it's not big enough. Okay, then America, no, it's not big enough. Betty, you have to go global. So Matt, I'm so glad that you're here, to be here for this moment. And there are very special people tonight here. And Pablito, thank you for the honor. So, with no further ado, we get to unveil the hope, and we get to give birth to Infinite Hope International. Surrender. This is what happens when you get clear on your purpose. This is what happens when you are able to get clear on having a reason for being on this earth. There is not an infinite number of years that we're on this earth. And my invitation to all of you is get clear and get centered on why you are here. Don't ever forget where you came from. Don't ever forget what the people that suffered or went through whatever they went through to get you to be here in this moment. Because this moment was made for you. And it's not what you have, but what you do with what you have that makes the difference. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.